Hey, what's up, Raza? It's your big homie Chuko Sam. Good morning. Today I just wanted to touch bases with you guys. I know you probably already saw it. You had like 1 million people posting about it, and I've been talking about it too. South Park Mexican. I mean, for those of you who haven't heard, he got his response from the parole board yesterday. And basically, his parole was denied. And I saw that. I woke up like about 5 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and I saw it. I went to the website, and sure enough, checked it out. It was legitimate. And I wasn't really going to make a video about it, post about it, because he's becoming irrelevant. I mean, yeah, I talk a lot of shit about him, but those are just my opinions, and you know, it's no secret I don't like him. I mean, who's gonna like somebody with those kind of charges, right? I mean, but that's if you believe it, you know. I know he has his loyal fans, the people that believe him no matter what. So, to me, you know, I'll say it again. When I first, even though I never liked the guy's music, I never really cared for him too much. He wasn't on my mind like that, you know, back then when he first came out. I listened to a couple of his raps and stuff, and to me, I didn't like him. I mean, you know, I'll be honest with you. I'm not gonna fucking like low-key hate on him. I wasn't into his music and shit like that, right? But back then when he first got those charges and stuff, and he was going to court and all that stuff, I actually believe that dude, man. I like, you know what? Like, why would he do that? You know, he's got all this fame. Yeah, he's got all these women. He's married, you know. He got kids. He's an older dude, you know. So, but then, you know, you put that shit on the back of your mind, like, yeah, he was probably set up and shit, right? There was no evidence, especially with the 9-year-old. I gotta give that to the to his followers, his believers, and his fans that, you know, really, there wasn't that much evidence. What got him is like, he set himself up, you know. He had all these other accusations, all these other charges, you know, which a lot of them he didn't get convicted for, you know. Didn't get, you know, indicted and shit like that for it, right? They got him on a 9-year-old. And the reason that they did that is because they had a better chance of prosecuting him. The cops really didn't like him. That's another thing. That's another fact, you know, that his fans preach. You know, they say that all the time. You know, the cops didn't like him, this and that. You know, because SPM wasn't a good person, man. He portrayed himself as a good person, but he really wasn't, you know. He's gotten in trouble before. You know, even when he was in middle school, he was doing suspect stuff, you know, chomo-ish stuff. You know, there were reports that he used to pick up girls way back when he was in middle school and stuff like that himself. So, anyways, what I was going to say was, dude's not innocent, you know, because he had one charge and then accusations, and then this other charge, this other accusation. He had like 8 total or 9 or something like that. I don't know. There's conflicting stories, but right away, his homies, you know, Juan Gotti and Baby Bash especially, they started like, you know, hey, you know, he didn't do it, you know, this and that, you know, the girl was a stripper, this and that. For years, they were feeding that to their fans, and of course, you know, if you like somebody, you're gonna believe them. I mean, you're not gonna think the worst of your idol and shit like that, man. And I get that. And again, I used to think, you know, that dude's innocent. They're fucking with them, you know. You start thinking like that, especially if you've been around like ratchet women and women that are no good and shit like that, like trampas and sconkas and shit like that. You know, ratchet ass people, you know. you're used to that. That's normal. Like, they set you up, you know? They try to, like, get you caught up and stuff. I've been accused of shit before, but not child molestation, you know? But, you know, I've been set up before by women. I've been, like, extorted and shit like that, and try to be blackmailed and shit like that in my younger times, you know? And so you believe the dude. You believe him. But once you start getting past, okay, there's a second, you know, accusation, the third, or fourth, fifth, then you start to see a pattern. And then this dude, back in the 90s, SPM, for some reason, I don't know why, went up to a reporter for the Houston Press. Or the reporter went up to him and asked him something, interview or something like that, right? I can't remember. It's been such a long time ago. For some reason, SPM tells the reporter from the Houston Press that when he was in, you know, middle school, Milby or some shit like that, he dropped out or something like that, or he got out of there, and he said something like, you know, I'm glad I'm out of there because one more year there, I would have been put in jail for fucking all those little bitches, is what he said. So he self-admitted to it, you know? And then when people started coming out saying, well, yeah, you know what, Jill, which is the 13-year-old, the one he impregnated, Jill, she never worked at no strip club. You know, that was a lie. You know, he himself came out and said it was a lie. That was a story that was made up by Bash and Gotti. SPM went on his social media, and it's still up there. If you go looking for it, I don't remember where. I think it's his Facebook or whatever. He's on there. He made a statement. He says, man, Jill was never a stripper. Maybe she was later in life, but he didn't meet her at no strip joint. But people still believe that story. Right? So, once you start figuring that shit out, like, oh man, this motherfucker's not only guilty, he's been lying. He's been lying and shit like that. And you try to ignore it, but he keeps making himself relevant. He keeps fucking making himself relevant. And he's pretty smart as far as keeping relevant. That way he can sell his albums and shit like that. It's always been about him. He's a businessman. And, man, you get to a point where you're like, man, fuck this dude. Because first of all, raza, real motherfuckers, true dudes, real vatos, we don't, that's a no-no, man. Child molestation? Hell no. You know, I don't give a fuck if he's the best rapper, if he's like the chief of police, or the president of the United States. All that shit goes out the window once you're associated with those kind of charges, man. You know, and no, it's not different in Texas. It's the same everywhere. Fools with common sense and dudes with morals know that shit. You don't have to be from California to dislike that fool or to hate on him. You know, of course, Texas, like, not all of us rock with that fool, man. We don't all support him. I did at one point. I mean, I didn't support him, but I thought that dude wasn't. I thought he was innocent, and a lot of people did, and to this day, a lot of people do. But the thing that what it is that people are in denial. That's your idol. That's their dude. That's that dude that he used to make all those songs and shit. But at the end of the day, he's just an actor. He's an entertainer, and he's just a person, just like me and you. But he's got sick thoughts and shit. You know, he's got a sickness. You know, that's like a mental issue. You know, he preys on little girls. You know, and if you don't like that, don't watch my fucking video. It's already been proven. Even his own people are coming back and backtracking backpedaling. Hey, yeah, you know what? You know, we've been covering up for him for all these years, for 23 years. Carolyn came out, Bash came out, Gotti, Mohasa, all his homies, the ones that I used to get into it with online on forums and shit, that they used to fucking protect them and back them up no matter what, are now like flipping the script. You know? So, I know that he's the one that's making Dope House money. I know he's the one that's keeping the shit running. His family runs it, but when people think Dope House, they don't think about the other artists. If I tell you Dope House, oh yeah, hey, right off the bat, you're gonna think SPM because he's the face of that company. You know? So, all bullshit set aside, all my personal opinions about that dude, he could have been something bigger than what he is. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to take nothing away from him. He is pretty big. He's got a big fan base. He's still selling records. He's still fucking selling music from like fucking 23 years ago. People still love him and shit like that. You know, he's got his devout followers. But, you know, once he did what he did, and he kept doing it over and over, and you realize that he is what he is, and there's no way around it, all that shit goes out the window. He fucked up his career, man. And can you imagine if he's in jail right now and he's convicted and he's did all this bullshit and people still like don't give a fuck and still follow him? Can you imagine that if he had never did that shit? If he like walked the straight line and didn't have those type of charges, can you imagine what he would be right now? He'd be a legend. He'd be like on top of it. He would be what he wants to be. Because he don't give a fuck about whether he comes out or not. Let's get that straight. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit about anything but himself and his image and his music sales. That's it. Because, you know, that's who he is. That's all he has now. You know, he's trying to like keep it going because, I don't know, that's what fuels him. And there's nothing wrong with that. But honestly, raza, homies, Mexican people, we shouldn't, like, the Chicanos, we shouldn't, like, listen to that fool no more, man. We shouldn't like that fool. And people with those type of charges are shunned. They're, like, disowned and shit, man. What do you think happens to chomos in prison? And why? They're the first targets. That's why homeboy's in PC. He's in protective custody. They don't call it here in they don't call it that here in Houston. They call it something else. They got like a big ass fucking fancy name for it. But it's the same shit as PC. He's in there. If he was out in general population, even though he has a big fan base and a lot of people like him and shit, all it would have took is that one dude that's not down with that shit. That's real. He's about it. All it would have took was that one dude and he would have been dropped. No, but he's in there. You know, he claims that he got a plea for 5 years or 2 years or some shit and he didn't take it because he knew he was innocent, this shit and that. No, he didn't take it because he knew that, well, he felt that there wasn't enough evidence and he would win that case. And you know what? He was right. But what happened was when he went out on bond and he said, no, not guilty. I don't want to take a plea deal. I don't want to take those 5 years or 2 years or whatever it was. The judge told him, you know what, all right, cool. I'm going to let you out on bond. He was out on bond. Pending the trial. Because he was going to fight it. And he could have won it, too. Because, once again, there was not enough evidence, you know? So, not long after he was let out on parole, you know, instead of him, like, being humble and keeping low-key, he was hanging out with his homies, smoking weed, partying, and shit. Because he was staying at he had a flop house. He had a house where he would stay with all his homies because he couldn't go home because part of his bond agreement was he couldn't be around minors and his kids were little back then, so he couldn't go home. So he went over there where all these dudes would go party, smoke weed, and fuck around with whores and bitches and shit like that. And him and a couple of his homies went out one day and they picked up these two 14-year-olds and they went to a hotel, man, a motel right here on the north side. Over here by I don't remember if it was by Humble or 45 somewhere. You tell me, why? Why would he put himself in that situation? And why would his homies put him in that situation? And what the fuck was he doing at a hotel with two 14-year-olds, right? Think about it. Just let it sink in. Why would he be at the hotel with two 14-year-olds? And why would he put himself in that situation? And why would his so-called homies let him or put him in that situation? Knowing damn well that he's out on bond and he can't be around minors. And you probably couldn't drink or smoke and shit like that. Because when you're on bond and parole and probation and shit like that, man, you gotta follow rules, man. You can't get in trouble, basically, and you can't do the shit that they tell you not to do. Because once you break those rules and you get charged again, there are consequences. So he was caught, and here's the thing: how did the fucking cops know that he was in a hotel room with the two 14-year-olds? So when the cops got there, it was only him and one 14-year-old. And the other chick took off with his homies. So when the cops rolled up, he was in there by himself with her. Did his homies call the cops? Did they fucking set him up? Did the cops set him up? Either way, it's his own fucking fault. So the judge got pissed the fuck off, and they wanted to give him the maximum. And the maximum here, I don't know how they figured that out. They wanted to give him 99 years. They wanted to give him life. But he had a good lawyer. I guess a so-so lawyer. You know, he was getting paid pretty well. The lawyer got it down to 45 years. You know, and he was promised parole after serving half of his sentence. All right? That's how he got the 45 years. He didn't get no 45 years because he was an up-and-coming artist, or because he was becoming powerful, or because he was Mexican, or none of that bullshit that people say. And their minds, that's what they think, because that's what he says. You know, he'll go out there and preach the gospel that he's innocent and everybody was just out to get him. No, he did that shit to himself. As a grown man, as a person like from the streets, people, you should know, man, that, when you're on parole or probation or bond or whatever, you know goddamn well what you did and what not to do. You keep low key. You stay away. Unless you don't give a fuck. You know? So he might have been set up by his own homies. He might have been set up by the cops, but nobody knows. And if that's the truth, then he said he fucking made it easy for them. Because there he goes. He went along with it. Nobody twisted his arm and told him, "Come on, Carlos." He went over there, and then that girl said that, you know, like they had sex. She admitted it to it, but then later on, she changed her story, and then somebody said that she had gonorrhea or some shit, like some kind of disease, and SPM didn't. So that's what cleared him. That's his lawyer. His lawyer beat that case. So he was never really indicted for it. You know what I'm saying? So, but he broke his bond agreement. You know, he broke his bond agreement. And the court saw that shit as, this motherfucker's a repeat offender. He shouldn't be out in the streets. Because you had all these women, children, these little girls coming forward. You had the case of the 9-year-old. You had the testimony of the Attorney General, because they were trying to get him because Jill, his baby's mama, the 13-year-old back then, filed child support on him. And the Attorney General figured out, like, this motherfucker, if she's this age, and she was 13 when she had the child, this vato must have been this years old, man. He's a fucking chomo. And then, you know, on top of that, he went and he got caught at the hotel. So even if there was a slight chance in the world that he was innocent, he proved it otherwise. So there's too much evidence to say that he was set up, that he was not guilty, that he's innocent. He did it, man. The evidence points towards like he did it, and he did it over and over and over and over, because it keeps coming up. But you're gonna have people, like, once again, that believe him. All right, but anyways, that's all I gotta say. And the thing is, what I wanted to really say to you guys is, I'm gonna stop talking about him. That's it. I feel sorry for the guy, but at the same time, I don't. You know, you go out looking for trouble. You go out being out there a knucklehead and doing stupid shit, man. You have to suffer the consequences. You know, most of the time, what happens to us in life is because of shit that we do. You know, he shouldn't have done what he did. You know, but at the same time, like, damn, 23 years is a long time. But here in Texas, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, that the maximum sentence for a child molester is 25 years. Not 45. And again, he got the 45 because he fucked up. He broke his bond. He set himself up. And, now, when he came up for parole yesterday, they said no. They denied him because of the nature of it, because of the fucking charges. There's more details to it than what we know. The law's not gonna give us all the details. They know more than we do. They know details and shit like that they probably can't tell us, that they can't like put out into the public. And then he hasn't been to rehabilitation. He hasn't taken responsibility. He hasn't taken anger management classes or any kind of classes or anything that you could do in there to prove to the parole board that you changed. The parole board sees that shit. He hasn't said he's sorry. He hasn't said that he's changed. The only thing he did say is that he found religion, but that's not enough because the parole board sees right through his bullshit. He's over there, instead of being humble and trying to get out, he's over there making records and talking all this bullshit like, when I get out, this and that, I'm going to take over the world, fuck everybody. That's his own fault too, man. You need to humble up and say, look, I'm sorry, I regret it. You know, I got my GED in here. I took anger management classes. I'm talking to a psychiatrist. Shit like that. That's what the parole board wants to see. But he's not doing that. He's over there acting all hard and shit. And if he found God and if he found religion, he wouldn't be over there cursing and talking about when he gets out, this and that, and trying to perpetrate like he's a gangster. And be honest with you guys, that fool was never a gangster, man. He was a drug dealer and a rapper, but in the sense that the shit that he says, that he portrays in his music, half of that shit, or most of that shit, he never really did. You know? But once again, he's an entertainer, he's an actor, you know, that's his image. But with that being said, they gave him a 3-year offset. Basically, they told him no, try again in 3 years. So his next parole board hearing is on January of January something, I forget, of 2028. So what he needs to do now, if he really wants to come home, if he really wants to see his family and live a normal life and leave all that shit behind, he needs to start repenting now. He needs to take the focus off of making music and trying to keep his image, because you know you got all these people behind him that saying free him and he's innocent and shit, but that's not going to help his cause. You got grown ass vatos on here fighting over a child molester, somebody who should have known better and shouldn't have done that shit. You got vatos out here fucking talking shit to each other, trying to run fades on each other and shit, threatening each other. He caused a lot of fucking turmoil. And like I said, if he really found God, he needs to start working on that. He needs to start right now. He needs to go see a psychiatrist, whatever, a counselor. He needs to start taking some type of classes. Keep going to church. Accept responsibility and get the fuck out. And stay humble and just live the rest of his life. He's too old to be with mamadas, to be with bullshit. As we get older, we're not like when we were young. When he gets out, he's going to only have a limited amount of time to live the rest of his life. He needs to think about that shit. You know? And with that being said, man, you know, hopefully, this will be my last video about him. And I know I talk a lot of shit. And I really don't like him. That's already been proven. But at the end of the day, 23 years, well, 26 now, is a long fucking time. And I hope he gets it for his own good. And, you know, because I'm tired of fighting with Raza over some dude, over some fool that made life choices that put him where he is right now, in the situation he is right now. He put himself there. And, órale, Raza. Have a wonderful, great rest of the day, man. I'll talk to you guys later.